Okay, we are now live. Welcome everybody to Cold Emails Hot Takes episode 27, and we're doing this one live. On today's episode, we have Jan van Musscher, founder of coldagency.io. He and his team have generated thousands of sales qualified leads with companies like Canon, KPMG, Snowflake, Adidas, and Go High Level. He has insane case studies such as getting 140 sales opportunities in a day for startup funding, 104 sales opportunities in 2 months for e-com, which is a very competitive niche, 199 sales opportunities in 3 months for a coaching company, and so on. So I'm glad I was able to bring him on and get him to share some of the secrets, the magic sauce. And so this Cold Emails Hot Takes episode is special because, as you can see, we are doing it live, and what could possibly go wrong, right? So Jan, first part of the podcast will be me asking some questions on how to get results and how you're getting results, and then at the end we'll also answer some questions by the community. And Jan, thanks for being on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Looking forward.
Okay, right. Yeah, let's just start off with keep everybody engaged with some rapid fire cold email questions. It's a little bit of a Cold Emails Hot Takes tradition. So yeah, are you ready?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, great. So first one would be, what's your favorite subject line?
Quick question.
All right. What's your favorite call to action in a cold email?
Mind if I send over some more information?
Okay. How many steps in a sequence, and what time interval between the steps?
4 steps, 3 days after the first step, and then 2 times 7 days. That's what we do.
Okay. How many cold emails a day can you send from one inbox?
50.
Okay. And
50.
How many secondary sending domains do you usually get for one client or one business?
For one client, we get 10 domains with 3 inboxes each, so 30.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. All right, that's it with the rapid fire questions. We'll go into a little bit of the broader questions. Maybe for people listening, let's say they're starting out, they want to launch their first campaigns, just getting started. What would you say are some frequent beginner mistakes that you see people doing with cold email?
I would say a couple of the mistakes I see is not having a proper website up. So while you can start with a landing page, a good website really helps. Not having your LinkedIn profile optimized because people will look you up. And another thing is just, the most common one is obviously talking about yourself all the time as opposed to talking about the prospect. So really focus on the prospect instead. That's the most common you see anywhere. Also by more advanced companies do that. So.
Okay. Yeah. And I saw, right, you have some really impressive case studies for coldagency.io. I mentioned a couple in the intro. One of them where you generated 199 sales opportunities in 3 months. Can you tell me more about that story and situation and how it went down, basically? How did you get that process? How do you get that result? What was the process like?
Yeah, so this was for a client that was in the corporate training niche. So basically they give trainings at corporates. We reached out to HR managers in the Netherlands, Belgium, and Luxembourg. So the main things that lead to these results is it was a hot topic. So they do diversity trainings. So that's something that's obviously important to these companies. There was also a law imposed in the Netherlands that some type of companies from a certain size, they need to at least invest a certain amount into these types of trainings. So we use that in the email copy to create urgency by law, basically. So we definitely leverage that. And then the final thing was, if you do outreach in Europe, you can do it in the local language. You can look at 3x the results as opposed to English. So that really helped. We did outreach in Dutch, so we got really great results. So that was kind of the 3 steps, as well as the client in question. They have quite a nice social following. They have a podcast. They have some LinkedIn content. So they're well known in their niche, which also really helps. Okay,
so it was kind of a combination of good offer. You had the urgency from government laws, native language, social proof. That's interesting with the native language, like Dutch. Is that your native language, or how did you write that copy, or did you hire somebody to do it for you?
Yeah. So I'm Dutch, so we could. My co-founder Jan is also Dutch, so we could obviously write it ourselves. We have tried with some German scripts as well. So then with the client, we just talk, like we get an outline, we get it translated with like ChatGPT or like DeepL, I think it's called. So we write the script in English, get it translated, and then they correct for like the correct grammar and some like minor changes. But that definitely helps so much. I mean, it's in the end, it's about building trust as fast as possible. Like you're a random email, and then you need to build trust. So if it's in the same language, it really helps stand out and get more trust. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I noticed that, especially with European clients, right? When we were running our lead generation agency, we had a German client, and we started off with English copy, and the results were so-so. But when we switched to just having German copy, the results started to take off. So yeah, for everybody listening that has like an offer in Europe or like any other language than English, don't hesitate to test it in the native language. Definitely works.
For sure. I think it's also, you're just competing with less people because everyone can talk, anyone can talk English. So that's also why the US, the UK are so competitive. While if you're reaching out in the local languages, I mean, you just, like all of the English speaking people, you just don't compete with them in the inbox. So.
Yeah. Would you say there's a difference between writing to people in America in terms of the tone or the style versus writing to people in Europe? Did you like, when you had this campaign in the Netherlands, how did you write it differently than to an American prospect, for example?
Yeah, 100%. I think there's like a big difference. So in the US, it's much more like the channel is much more sophisticated. Like a lot of people are doing it. You have to be shorter. Sometimes even like one sentence emails, right, work the best. While if you send a one sentence email, like in the Netherlands, it's just like, who are you? Why are you emailing me? Why didn't you take the time to write me a proper email, right? It's like the other way around. So definitely doesn't work. And actually, funny you mention it because we just posted this on LinkedIn a couple of days ago. We had a campaign in the Middle East, which is even like the channel is even less sophisticated, let's say. And there we had to like apologies for following up and being persistent, like that kind of stuff we need to add to the script, and it actually performed a lot better. So things you would never do in the US because it would never work anymore, those things are actually working really well in other regions. So it's definitely a big difference. Yeah.
Interesting. How did you find that out, like on how to adjust the messaging based on the region? You mentioned like the Middle East. Maybe you say, hey, apologies for following up. It's a little bit a toned down version than in the US. Like, how did you find that out?
Yeah, so we with that specific campaign, it was performing really well in the US. Same offer, same type of targeting, and then we took the same script, tried to run it in the Middle East, and it just wasn't working at all. And we're like, okay, looking through the lead list, each and every lead, companies looked very similar. We thought maybe there's just no demand for this offer here, but we were just like, as a last resort, let's be a bit more traditional because we had seen it before with European campaigns, but then like not as much as within the Middle Eastern ones. And we just tried it out, being super polite, as some would call it, and it turned out to work really well. Yeah, definitely.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Cool. Interesting. You mentioned another case study where you got 104 sales opportunities in 2 months from e-com, and a lot of people know e-com is like super competitive niche. How were you able to get these results in a competitive niche? What was the situation like?
Yeah, so for this client, it was back when TikTok really started to pop. So it was also like a current theme, and we really took the approach where sometimes we just assume things. We're like, oh, I saw you weren't active on TikTok yet, even if we're not 100% sure. And that really felt like that personalized approach. Well, it was actually just an assumption we made. And the offer tied in with getting them on TikTok and on TikTok ads. So that worked really well, as well as they also, again, had some nice case studies, some nice social proof. So it got it off the ground. I will say that with e-com, what we found as well later on is just if you're really going after the bigger e-com stores, it's just so hard. I think a lot of the smaller ones you can still get, but if you're really looking for those big ones, I think with email, it's getting really hard right now.
Yeah, that's a cool approach to kind of, in a way, personalize. You're making this assumption in a way, personalizing without having to personalize, right? You say, hey, I saw you're not really active on TikTok, which is a cool angle to go with, and it seems like you wrote it for them specifically. Is there like any other example where you did something similar, like where people don't have to write a personalized line, but it looks like they took the time to look at everybody individually?
Yeah, we had some other ones where we I'm thinking if we're still running it, if I want to give away. But we had one
Maybe
where we
you
were
have
like,
to share.
yeah. No, I think we had some other ones where it's very similar. So you just assume something that is a pain they have, and then that ties in with the offer. So it's I don't know, I saw you weren't doing this thing yet, and then you just assume it. And then with some people they'll respond like, oh, I am doing it, but still it could improve. Or you want to make it assumptive, but not as like, you don't want to say like, oh, your website sucks or whatever, right? Like that's a bad example of doing it. We want to do something like, hey, I think it could use some improvement. And they're like, oh, why do you think that? And then you just look up their website and you reply back and tell them. So that's a really good angle to stand out and make it seem less automated.
Yeah, cool. And yeah, even if you make that assumption and it turns out to be not true, like there's not really a downside to it. Maybe you reach out to 100 people, for 10 it was actually not true, but it's all good. You were able to personalize it, and it's another bunch of volume.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, Jan, what would you say just in general, like high level? I know a lot of people, kind of one blockage is they're looking at the blank page and they don't really know what to write in their cold email. They don't know where to start. Maybe they have writer's block. What is kind of your creative process or maybe your system that you use to write compelling cold email copy?
Yeah, for sure. So in the day-to-day, actually my co-founder writes the copy, so I must give credits to him as well for this system. But the way we do it internally is we use the Hormozy matrix to write out the offer of each client. Or we're like, hey, what's the outcome? What's the time delay? What do you have to do themselves? All that kind of stuff. We write that out on a Google Doc, and then we go in and we search for different types of relevance as well. So we're trying to tie the relevance to the offer and to the pain, and then basically go from there. And then we do use like a basic structure to work off of like 99% of the time, which is like the greeting, like relevance. We call it a pain question. So we ask them like, hey, how are you handling this, or how are you doing? I don't know, just like something that basically implies like, hey, are you having this problem? And then an offer, and then usually a soft call to action. And then from that, we take some parts away. Sometimes we skip the relevance and we tie it in together. But that really gives us like all of the elements to then, basically shuffle around and get the right combination. So.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so you're using like, you have some type of structure, like the Lego blocks that you mentioned. You're not just like trying to come up with something from zero, but you have a little bit of that structure, which is helpful.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and also like right now, of course, we also, after we've run a lot of campaigns, we look at previous campaigns that were successful, targeting the same types of decision makers, or maybe even the same types of offers to get inspiration from.
Yeah. Okay. And I know, Jan, you're working with so many different clients. How do you go about quickly understanding their offer, their target audience? You know, what are some key things to know before launching, before you're ready to launch that first campaign?
Yeah. So what we do is obviously on our onboarding form, we're pretty extensive. And one thing we ask is like, hey, in our scripts, we ask questions. Can you think of some questions to ask your ideal prospect that they would like get triggered by, basically? And that really helps to create that script. Apart from that, we do work with those 4 industries. So, I mean, we're business owners ourselves. We kind of know, like, if you're working with the sales software, for example, we know those pain points, and from the other campaigns as well. So we're just really in those 4 industries, we really do know like what those benefits are, as well as we look at like those general trends. For example, if we're selling corporate training for our clients, we don't have to know too much about like in depth of their trading, but we just tie it in with general trends such as shortages on, like at least in Europe, there's a lot of shortage on the job markets, retention, all that kind of stuff, right? Like general problems someone would have around keeping employees, and then we tie it back in with the exact offer to frame it as the solution. So we don't have to know too much. We of course need to understand what the client is selling, but we really have to know like what are you solving, and then we can tie it back to something relevant. Yeah.
Okay. And once, let's say, you have that understanding of the offer, the market, you have the cold email copy ready, leads are ready. How do you go about quickly finding a winner? Do you do any split testing? Like how many campaigns do you launch to start it with?
Yeah, so we have 3 scripting styles we mainly use. So one is the one I just mentioned. Then we have a short and simple, I think we call it, internally. Again, my co-founder writes the scripts, so
Mm-hmm.
I must say he takes credit for this. But we have a short and simple, and we have a third one as well. And then we test two major pain points in each of them. So we have 6, so A, B, C, D, E, F,
Okay.
and then we go from there. And then of course we look at non-reply rate, but positive reply rate. And then one thing we also started doing now is really like also feeding back the data of like who actually booked a meeting from those interest responses, because we did also find that even though some campaigns were generating more sales leads, it wasn't booking as many meetings. So different pain points actually led to less conversion for some reason, even though they were both like same interested level, same type of call to action. It was just converting less. So yeah, we're really looking at that, like how many meetings does each angle book, and then we optimize from there.
Okay, got it. How did you attribute that back? So that conversion of like meeting booked or even closed, how did you attribute that back to knowing which campaign generated that?
Yeah, so what we do is so for our clients we generate the sales opportunities, meaning it's the positive responses. Then obviously we have a sheet, and then we just talk to our clients obviously every 14 days. Who actually did you get on the call? And then we go from there. And then for each of the leads, we know what campaign it came from with the API and everything. So we track it back that way and then optimize accordingly. Yeah.
Okay, got it. Yeah. So it doesn't have to be too complicated, right? You could just basically track it in a spreadsheet and you talk to the client, okay, which one converted. So it's really for people, don't need to overthink it. Like just checking it every 2 weeks, they can see okay what converted and what didn't. It's
not like Facebook AI or whatever. We're feeding it back or automated. It's nothing like that. It's just simple, just tracking it in a spreadsheet. And then when we launch the next campaign, we know what variants to turn off, and we make some other variants as well to further optimize.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. No need to over-engineer it. Can just keep it simple. But that's an interesting point. Yeah. Sometimes you get campaigns where you get a bunch of positive replies, but doesn't mean that's the best campaign necessarily. You really need to track. Okay. Awesome. So next question would be, how do you know who to target in your campaigns? How do you define the ideal customer profile with those first campaigns that you're launching?
Well, I mean, we're looking at like see what we're selling, and usually we target bigger companies. We don't really do anything with like revenue filters, all that kind of stuff. We try and keep it pretty simple. So we're just going after industry and then usually the size, and also sometimes we look at what kind of software they're using, right? With tools like build with, or maybe with store leads if we're going after e-com. And then also we're using a tool called Ocean, which has some nicer tags. So they scan the website and then they have some more in-depth tags. So we go account-based first, and then next step is to find the decision maker in there. If it's companies that are less than 20 employees, we also sometimes just use generic emails. If we can't find them in some of the databases, we just go after generic email, or sometimes even after just a random person. With larger corporations, you obviously don't want to do that. You don't want to email some random person in a 1,000 FTE organization, because it's not going to lead anywhere.
Do you mean like generic emails like info at or hello at, or how do you mean it?
Yeah, info ad sometimes, especially with e-com. What we found is that even some of the larger, I mean, it's super hard with e-com. We don't do a lot of e-com anymore, but it's super hard with e-com to see how big are they actually, right? It could be a founder with some agencies running it up like big time, and then they are still behind the info ads address. You just email that and you just get to the founder. So with those industries, we do that. And then I would say with more of the SMB type, we just do a random person, and we just like, hey, I'm not sure if you're the right one, and we only do this, by the way, if they're not in the databases and the rest, or we can't find them on LinkedIn. We try and go in this approach to also get those accounts into the lists. So it's getting the accounts first, and then enriching them with the right decision makers, and going from there. And then, who do you know to target within those companies? I mean, if you're selling training, it's usually either the HR managers or it's the specific managers, what the trainings are about, because they have budgets. With other stuff, like if you're selling sales enablement tools, right? You're emailing the head of sales. I mean, it's pretty, like in that sense, it makes sense. And our clients usually already know as well, like who do you sell to the most often, and who is most likely to convert and care about the subject. And we go after those decision makers. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, great. Yeah. Yeah, right. You define the targeting the companies, the accounts first, and then you go into
Yeah.
like the specific titles. Also made for people not like CEOs and founders are not the only decision makers, right? In a company
No.
there you can there's multiple ways to get in touch with the various decision makers. There's
Yeah.
directors as well, like not only CEO, like the CEOs get the most cold emails. You can also hit up
Yeah.
other people in that company. Obviously also
Yeah.
depending on the offer, like you said, with HR offers, obviously it's like VP of people, HR directors, but
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
so many different titles that you can target.
We actually rarely go after founders anymore. Like rarely. Like it's just other. Yeah. And then sometimes what we do as well, basically a bit more like labor intensive, is if you go after the head of sales first, they don't respond, you get back to the founder, you enrich the list again. You say like, hey, I emailed head of sales name, but he didn't get back to me, and then we re-engage them that way if we're really going account based. But it is, I mean, that's pretty intensive to get those lists, and it's a lot of work, but it's worth it if you really want to get after those accounts, and not just email the same person that's apparently not interested. Could still mean that the founder is disagrees on that subject with the head of sales, for example. So yeah, that's definitely something we do as well. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. It reminds me kind of a follow-up that also has been working well. Is in a follow-up you say, hey, first name, are you the right person to discuss this with, or is there somebody else at company name I should be speaking to? And then maybe that way you find the real decision maker, or you bump it up and they say, okay, like talk to this person, and say, oh no, I'm the person to talk with, and you can get in that way.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, cool. And actually, Jan, you were one of the person that suggested account-based marketing, so you can turn off the follow-ups instead of instantly. We implemented that now.
I saw. Yeah, I think I posted it twice in the Facebook group, just bugging you guys,
exactly.
please.
Exactly.
We're doing it manually, so it was a lot of. But yeah, it's nice that it's in there.
Okay, we implemented that now based on your feedback.
Yeah, awesome. Awesome. Yeah.
Okay, great. So next question would be, right, you're running a lot of campaigns, you're getting like thousands of positive replies. How is your team structured? Like, who is part of your team in order for you to, let's say, multitask and get results for everybody? If people really want to scale, how do they structure that team?
Yeah, so the way we structure our team is we have account managers or customer success managers that talk to our clients. They like really manage the campaign. They have the ownership of the campaign and of its success. What they do is with the client. So we really work like with the client. It's not that we just do something and they get the lead. We really work with the client and like tie in with their existing marketing efforts, etc. So they set up the campaigns. We have a script writer that does the script writing, and then they themselves like make the right filters and the right like accounts. And then we have another team that helps with like enriching those lists, verifying, maybe like removing some bad formatting, etc. Then it all comes together. We do one final check, and then we get to work. And then we check weekly on our numbers. Like daily, we classify all the responses, but weekly we check on all of the numbers. And then if a campaign's been running for 2 weeks and it's below KPI, then we reiterate. So that's our process right now, and it's been working well. So.
Okay, cool. Another question, I would be curious because you know, at the forefront, what would you say is the future of cold outreach or cold email? Where are things headed?
Yeah, so one thing I think will be more and more important is I think it's a general trend. Of course, people are a bit more skeptical, a bit more like polarization, etc. So I think building like a social brand next to your outreach is just gonna like keep you future-proof, basically. One thing I've actually been testing specifically is just adding my LinkedIn in my signature. Even though, of course, right, we don't want to put links usually in emails. I just try and testing it, and I got more positive responses because posting content on LinkedIn, I think I got around 10K followers there, so nothing too major, but still some nice social proof, and that's just been working really well. As well as the other clients from the case studies I just mentioned, right? Like all of them had in common, they already had some social presence. So I think the future is it will always keep working because just reaching out to people directly with a good like value proposition, showing you understand them, potentially helping them further, like that will always be there. I just think you have to have more proof to yourself that you're not just some random person sending the email, but you actually know what you're talking about and you're worth spending time on. So I think that's the future, just having that brand to complement your outreach.
Okay, cool. Yeah, it's usually we say like best practice don't include signature links in the first email, but actually, recently I've been seeing more and more like also if you add a signature and if you add a link in that first email, if you know what you're doing, you're gonna get really good results with that. So that's definitely worth a test too for people. Adding for social proof in that first email, maybe even trying to add a link in there, maybe like do a split test, like variation A is without any links. And variation B, you can add like some social proof or a link in the signature and try it.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was doing, and I saw better results with adding my LinkedIn in there, just so they knew like, hey, this guy knows what he's doing. Yeah.
No. Cool. Okay, Jan, we talked about like tactics, strategies, but a big part of being successful in anything, obviously, is mindset. What would you say is your mindset, and how did you become successful? Like, do you have a special daily routine, or do you just open up the laptop and start working? Like, kind of what's the mindset side of things for you?
Yeah, interesting question. I think I knew early on that I wanted to do my own thing. I mean, I have worked a lot of like jobs when I was younger, just like supermarket jobs, that kind of stuff. I always got bored really quickly, and I know I've been. I started my first company when in uni, and I mean I just love like creating something out of nothing. I think that's just a lot of fun, and it also just I think when you are like meant to do your own thing. If you look at successful people and like, oh, if this guy can do it, I should be able to do it too, right? Like some kind of like that's kind of my mindset has always been. So. I think it's just that, like, hey, if someone can do it, I can do it too. Let me try it. Let me keep at it. And I mean, I don't have any crazy, really like cold plunge, whatever, like combinations. I mean, I do like going to the sauna, but and going to the gym and that kind of stuff. Some occasional meditation, but nothing too major. Just like trying to crack the code and get where all the people have already been. And thinking, yeah, I should be able to do this too. Let me try it. So that's kind of my mindset. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. All right. Great. Yeah. That was it from my side for the questions. Let me check. I'm going to check the comments. I know we had a bunch of viewers here, and there's a lot of comments. I'm going to pick out a couple of questions. And for you, Jan, let me see. Question. What would you say? What niches are the hardest to target with cold email?
Ecom, I would say, is the main one. That's just super hard. Because, I mean, it's multiple reasons. A lot of people are doing it. A lot of more beginners are doing it. So they're using cold email because it's great to start if you're just starting out. And also, I feel like those companies aren't as... I mean, a lot of the more of like the corporate companies, they're on their email all day. It's just what they do, respond to emails, get emails, send emails. So you're in the flow of their work, and with ecom it's just less the case from what I found. So I think that's by far the hardest. Web design maybe, but that's not really a niche, that's an offer. Any other local businesses, I would say it's the same thing. It's not really in their flow and their line of work to check emails, send emails. So yeah, if it's natural to them to respond to emails, they're selling themselves too with emails, it's a lot easier to reach them and hear back from them. Yeah.
Okay, got it. Then I see another question by Jolie. Have you ever used Loom outreach strategy?
Yeah, we do Loom outreach strategy, as well as we're trying right now Pitch Lane, which is also a tool to automate video prospecting. Both work. I mean, with the Loom, what we found is we like to ask, like, hey, I already made a video, mind if I send it over? And once they respond, only then do we actually make a custom Loom or even like a pre-recorded Loom, and we send it over. Keys there would be to keep it really short. We've tested a long one and a short one. And the long one, you do get a lot of like super qualified calls. They know exactly what you're selling. So they know what they're going to buy if they hop on the call. But the drop-off is just like, is really big. With the shorter one, we found less of a drop-off. And then some videos in the first emails, we're experimenting with that right now, and with some AI stuff, like I said. And I'm not 100% sure yet on that. I mean, I'll keep you updated on our results.
Okay, cool. See another question here asking, how to get a case study when you're just starting out. I know like case studies can obviously be leveraged in your outreach, but if you start starting out and you don't have any, Like, what do you do?
So I think I never really was in this position because I already had some, like, I started in a different B2C lead generation and just rolled through. What I would say is try and get your first client locally, like someone you know or someone, like just to someone that can actually see you in person and get the trust that way. And I mean, if you're doing performance-based pricing and they see you in person, they see you are like driven, like they will give you a chance. And I think that's the easiest way to get that first case study. And I think doing it online, like getting trust online is so much harder than doing it in person, especially if you're genuine and just trying to get out there. So, I mean, getting the first case study, I would focus on that. If that's not an option, if you're from a different country or whatever, and there's not a lot of, I don't know, if it's just not an option for you, what I would say is really try and get your expertise across by doing a proposal or just really outlining exactly what you're going to do. So you reverse the risk that way. They know exactly what you're going to do. You've written it out. You show that you're competent, and don't do any like crazy 3 times your money back or that kind of stuff, because that will burn you in the long run. So I wouldn't do that, but just show that you're genuine, that you're willing to work hard, that you're willing to only get paid maybe if you're successful, and I think you should be good to go. And try to do it in person if you can. That will work even better. Yeah.
Okay, got it. Yeah, some good advices there. And so somebody's asking, like, how for their offer, how can they do market research?
Like ChatGPT is really good to do market research. Actually. You are a decision maker at company type. You just type that in. You are the HR manager at a big corporate. You have only 3 things you worry about, or whatever, right? Like, what are those 3 things? And it will just spit out some of those things. Apart from that, I mean, you should know your market if you're selling to them, or your client should know their market if they're selling to that market. If none of you know, if you don't know and your client doesn't know, then they shouldn't be going after that market. So, right? Like, you should know.
In a bad spot if nobody knows who the market is.
Yeah, exactly.
Situation.
Yeah, so you can enrich kind of your like research with doing it with like ChatGPT or just Googling around, right? Or maybe like Reddit. Like, it depends on the kind of research you're trying to do. But I mean, usually it comes from experience. Like, I just know, like, whenever I sell to someone, I just know they worry about those 3 things, and then it's easier to go from there. So, yeah, I think that's the answer.
Yeah, exactly. Also, like just getting on calls with past customers, or like finding out more about customers. But yeah,
100%.
Like you said, you'll just figure it out by doing, right? You can't know everything ahead of time, but you know, if you're starting out, you're launching your first campaigns for your offer, whatever it is, just talk to your customers as much as possible, and you'll find it that way. You don't need to overthink it. But all right, I'm going through the questions.
Just ask them too in discovery, right? If you're doing discovery on a sales call, just ask them, why did you book the call? Why do you care about this? Why do you want this? Why do you want this outcome? They'll tell you. So.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so the question here, any tips for a B2B consulting company that sells e-learning, which has so many components and possibilities, versus, say, SaaS? It's very gray in terms of scope and pricing. So I think like the gist of this question is they have a quite complicated offer. What should they do? What should they keep in mind when they're doing outreach?
Yeah, so internally we call this like a spare offer. So like putting one part forward in front of the next. So obviously you don't know what to sell them, because usually right with the sales process you run discovery, and then you know, hey, this is like a good solution for you and this isn't. So to get them on that initial call, you should really just like put one thing forward. This can be literally like a case study, like, hey, this is how we solved the problem for someone else. Like, can we do something similar for you? And then it's just purely about the outcome. It's not about how you got them there, or like what's part of your e-learning or that kind of stuff. But it's really about the outcome. Also tying it into, like I mentioned earlier, like the trends. So if it improves employees like knowledge and engagement, then I mean it's a way to solve retention, right? So you can kind of tie it into the outcome, and then not as much sell your solution per se as the bridge right away, because you're not sure what part of the solution they need. But then just say the case, like, we've done this before, we've got someone this outcome before, and then we would love to see if we can do the same for you. Are you open to seeing seeing how we do that. And then on the call, obviously, you just ask like, hey, first I need to know a bit more about what you do, because otherwise I'm not 100% sure which part makes the most sense. So yeah, really trying to like get one thing out, and definitely not make like a super long email including multiple options, because that definitely does not work. Right, like confused prospects don't buy, so don't confuse them with a lot of options. Just ask them like, hey, can I basically see and see what you're doing, and then I can see if we can help you, because we did it with this nice name or this great outcome before. Yeah, so focus on that.
Yeah. No, right. If the offer is complex, that's more something that's solved on the sales call. It doesn't have to be solved in the cold email, like you said.
Yeah, exactly. You're selling the call in the email, so you're not selling the product. So,
yeah. Okay, great. And Jan, this is it. It was great to have you on this live episode. And let's say for people who want to learn more from you, or they want to work with you, coldagency.ai, like where can they go? Where can they learn more?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, thanks for having me. It was a pleasure. So if you're an established business, you can go to coldagency.io. There we can help you get off the setup done for you. Or if you're more on the starting side, you can go to my Twitter, Jan van Musscher. Maybe we should put a link out there on how to spell it. And then same thing on YouTube as well, and on LinkedIn I'm posting content. And on YouTube I'm just starting out, so I could use some support there. But yeah, that's basically it. That's where you can find me.
Okay, yeah, awesome. Thanks, Jan. Thanks also for everybody listening today. Fun episode, and I'll link the links to your Twitter, to your YouTube, also to your website in the comments and in the description. And yeah, I'll talk to everybody soon.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.
Thanks.